It's a really gigantic law firm in Cleveland. Well, it's really global at this point, but it was founded in Cleveland. And Joe is the chief security architect, or one of the
information security architect, yeah, security manager, yeah.
Which I can only imagine is very important for a large law firm. So let's hear about what he does.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here, guys. Actually, I got to get one thing out. I forgot my note cards. Let me grab those real quick. These are important. Yeah, so again, thanks for having me. I want to thank Eddie Massey, who I know understood couldn't be here. He had an emergency come up, so I hope everything's okay with him. Really good guy, and I'm glad to be here. Also, I want to thank the group, obviously ACM. I appreciate you guys inviting me here today. I'm glad to speak here for that. And also Case Western. I've only been on the campus a couple times, so it's pretty cool to be here again. Trying to find the hall, that was always fun. Anyways, just a little bit of background on me. I went to the University of Akron, so no offense to hopefully. My dad worked there, so I got some pretty good reimbursements. So that's kind of what drove me to that university. I also have worked for several industries throughout information. I've been doing information security for about 15 years. I worked at a financial institution or an investment institution here in Cleveland. I worked for a bank here. I've also done consulting. And then I worked at Farmers Insurance for about 7 or 8 years as an information security manager. Did consulting in the health world, and then I'm now working at a law firm. I did consulting at a law firm prior to as well. So yeah, I'm the president of the local ISC Squared Cleveland chapter. So if you've heard the certification, CISSP, they're the mothership of that. They're a national organization. We just started the Cleveland chapter this year. So we've had a lot of good meetings, and Eddie's actually attended those meetings, and you guys will be welcome to do that too. In 2013, they're going to start something called the Young Professionals Organization, which would really help, I think, from a jobs perspective and just an exposure perspective for you guys. I would like to say what I really love about this job is that I love it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, as you can imagine, in information security, that you read the articles all over the world today, what's going on, and it's never the same. Every day it changes. So I think that's the cool thing about it. So this is what I put together with what we're going to talk about today. I didn't know how deep we wanted to go into technology. We can go deep if you have questions. I don't want to bore people too much or preach to them too much about what's bad or good about technology, but I can tell you some of the things that we do to ward off the bad guys, if you will. But I just thought we'd start with this, and then we'll obviously be open to any questions that you guys may have. So let's talk about the problems that we face. Now, one of the other things I do want to disclose real quick, I won't be talking a lot about Jones Day's data security for a lot of reasons. So just disclaimer there, I won't be talking a lot about that. I will tell you it's a great company. I will tell you it's a very large, very successful law firm with very talented people, even in the IT department and the lawyers, of course. We have a lot of clients. You can imagine the list of companies out there. Any company that you could probably think of that's a large, successful business is probably a client of Jones Day for the most part, or has been. So in the legal industry, what we're seeing is a lot of what's been going on with the financial industry now. Everyone's like, hey, why would I go after the financial industry if I can go hack the law firms? So there's a lot more articles that, I call this the FUD, right? You'll hear the term FUD, and I don't know if you know what that means. It stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's what a lot of security folks will try and tell their business management to get funds, right? Oh, we're gonna, this is bad, this is bad. But it is bad, actually. And it's gotten a lot worse. So let's talk about some real quick global statistics, right? And something you guys are probably not surprised to hear, but the last 3 years, 509 million records have compromised, right? So this came from the Verizon Data Breach Report. They work with the United States Secret Service to compile those stats. So that's, what does that mean? The average record compromised is about $194 per record is what that costs. So if you do the numbers in your head, it's very expensive. 92% stem from external attacks, right? Hackers, bad guys, malware is considered an external attack, and then obviously web attacks. I know you mentioned SQL injection, right? Well, the irony behind SQL injections is still a problem. There's still a lot of firms and business out there who haven't cleaned up their act, right? And it's the 101 stuff that people still need to get better at. And we'll talk about a little bit about that too. So you guys can see the stats here yourself. You know, talk about spam, right? But spam isn't really the problem, it's just a nuisance now. Spear phishing, whale phishing, I don't know if you heard of that. Whale phishing is when you go after the executives, right? You spear phish them and you send them a golf link to click on, right? One of the other stats I'll bring up to you guys is the illegal drugs industry, right? Last year, $372 billion industry with illegal drugs. The internet fraud industry, $627 billion industry, right? So where's the motivation behind that?
We're talking about illegal recreational drugs or pharmaceuticals?
I think it's all of it. Anything that falls in the illegal drug world. So I could probably think it compiles both of that. That's a good question. But internet fraud is like double that. So that's why. So why do we have all these bad guys? Where are they coming from? So that's kind of a draw from there. From a malware perspective, the stat I've got recently: 500,000 new malware applications or components come out per day. You know, and when you're doing my job, your job is to protect 5,000 employees in a global firm. You know, that's sometimes can make it trouble to sleep at night. So let's talk about the problems that we're facing out there. So cyber war. So we just had Obama, the White House administration, and there's nothing against Obama because Bush was admitted to doing it before. You know, comes out on the record and says, hey, you know, we're doing cyber warfare as well against Iran, right? So I don't know if you read about that, but I think we all knew that was happening. But then to have the administration come out and say it, like it's in the headlines, the first thought I heard about that is like, oh no, now it is on, right? Now the bad guys are going to be like, oh, well the United States just said they're doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Wham! You know, they start doing denial of service attacks. Both local banks here, or two of the major ones I should say, have experienced denial of service attacks. And all that is a way to you know, distract someone. I'm denial of service, you know, attack your website. Well, while I'm doing this, and all your security guys are over here trying to fix this, right now I'm in your database just pulling records out. You're over here dealing with that. So we're seeing, you know, blended threats as well. Crimeware. It's another big issue. You don't have to write this stuff anymore. You know, 15, 20 years ago, there was folks, like, you know, very smart people, not unlike yourselves, who could write this stuff, you know, and only they knew how to do it. Right? Oh, only these guys know how to do it. Well, now, you know, people are writing it, and they're putting it out on websites that you can go to, buy it, for $15 or $20. You know, so you've got what they call script kiddies. I don't know how to hack, but you know what? I'm going to take out my competition, so I'm going to go download some crimeware, and I'm just going to go to town with it. You know, it anonymizes everything for me, so please don't do this. I'm not advertising it, but this is what we're up against. The bad guys, they're a lot more organized, too, than they used to be. So when you get into this field, you know, the people that you're trying to prevent from getting into your company or into your firm, they have two different levels. They train, you know, there's a whole group of people that are just experts on getting through the firewall or getting onto the network. They don't know what's going through the firewall. But these people, that's all they do, and they get paid to do it. So there's 50 people that sit in a room somewhere in some nation state that I won't mention. They're sitting in a room, and they're using all these tools like crimeware to get in the door. So some guy picks up the phone and says, hey, I want you to own me 15 computers in company ABC. So these guys get paid to do it, and they do it, and they get in the door. Then they hand it over to the other team. Okay, these guys over here, these guys are experts now that I'm in. Now harvest. Just go out and find the data that I want to get from you. And these guys don't know what those guys are doing, right? These guys get paid, they hand the baton on back to the guy who paid them. That guy takes the baton, hands it to the other team, says, all right, now you're into the network, you're in the bank network, now go get me those records. You guys are trained to do that. So there's 50 guys over here, and they don't know who each other are by design. So that's some of the things we're up against. I mentioned this, bad economy. So I don't know, what does the bad economy have to do with hackers and security? Well, there are people in, you know, I'm going to use Russia as an example, but they're not the, you know, they're not the only bad guys out there. They're not the bad guys, I should say. But there are people in those economies or in those nations that can't find jobs. They, you know, they're just, it's a horrible, their economy's crashing. They can't find jobs. They'll do anything to make money for their family. Oh, and by the way, they happen to be really good at this other stuff, right? So it's not that they really want to do that. They're getting paid to do it. All right, it's a job. You know, I'll go do this for you. I'll be on that team. I'll be on that team. So that's something to think about. Hacktivists, you guys probably know what that is. You know, if there's a large organization that dumped thousands and thousands or gallons and gallons of oil into an ocean, and people are angry at that company, the hacktivists are the people that are going to use these same tools to go after that company, saying you guys shouldn't do that, you should know better, blah, 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 and make you pay. State-sponsored, I think that speaks for itself, so there are nations over there who will not admit to it, but are paying people to do the two groups I just talked about. So that's the problems that we face, right? That's the problems I face when I get up in the morning and I'm driving to work and I'm going, great, you know, this is all the stuff's going on. So the challenges that you face within an organization. And let me take a step back here for a minute. I meant to say this earlier. What the cool thing is about what I do, and hopefully what you'll be doing, whatever it is, if you get into this field or any field, there are a lot of people out there who have jobs, right? You get up in the morning, they get to work, and punch the clock, and all they want to do is get through the day, punch the clock, and go home. You know, that's not any fun. You know, don't do that. And I will have to say, the fact that you guys are all here on a Saturday morning, 11 a.m. on a rainy Saturday morning in Cleveland, and you got out of bed and you came here is a good start. You know, I have to commend you guys for doing that. You know, it's what you put into it, it's what you're going to get out of it, right? So that's the same for school, right? It's going to be the same in your job, right? And that's what I love about my job, because I try and put a lot into it, right? Because I get a lot out of it, and it's a lot of fun. So anyways, the challenges that we face, back to that sidebar, budgeting, that's a problem, right? That's a tough problem. Trying to get the money for the tools to fix these problems or keep all those bad guys out, right? That's definitely a challenge. And let me pull up something here. Excuse me 1 second. You know, budgeting, trying to get the money for the tools to fix that. And this is exactly what I do a lot of times. Now, there's different tiers, and we'll talk about the different jobs that exist out there, the different roles that you could play if you're interested. The role I play now is more of a security leader in organizations. I've got to sell the need. I've got to tell people about the bad stuff and tell them how bad it is, right? So I've got to sell that we need the resources. You know, you guys know about spam filtering and that sort of thing. I've also got to give that visibility that our firewall has had thousands of hits on it, you know, within an hour. You know, millions of hits within a week, you know, and show that these guys are actively trying to get in any way they can. I have to sell the technology. All right, Joe, you told me that if I buy product A, that it's going to fix this problem, it's going to go away. No, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that we need what's called the defense in depth strategy, right? I need this tool to fix this problem. I need this tool to fix this problem. But there's also something called process, right? I can't fix every problem with buying a tool, and I don't want to ever sell that, you know, to any manager or what have you. And the other challenge that we're facing, I'm sorry, question?
Yeah, when you're selling the need, to what degree do you come up against issues of time to market, where someone goes, well, we need to get this out by X, so we're really not going to be able to ensure that these features are present that would otherwise secure the right.
A lot of times, it's always part of it. That's a great question because it's always part of the situation. You know, there's also what I find myself doing, especially in application development space, is it takes a lot more money to fix a SQL injection or a cross-site scripting problem in an application. It takes a lot more time to fix it and money after it's out in production. So I tell a lot of executives, okay, if we don't want to bake it in from the beginning as we're developing this, right? If you want to wait until we're done at the end, you know, it's $80 per hour to do it here. It's probably about $270 per hour to pull it out, retest it, promote it into production, that sort of stuff. So a lot of times I have to sell that, and sometimes I lose. And then what happens is, and I'm patient, I come around, and this is not a Jones Day thing, because I've been in a lot of places. They're pretty good at it there, to be honest. I come back around and I do my scanning, right? So I have my my bad tools as well, because I have to be a bad guy, right? I pretend to put on my white hat, and I'm scanning and I'm trying to break in, and I go, hey, ding, 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 look at that. You remember what we told you we weren't going to build into it? Well, this is a problem because I'm now in your database. Oh, and that's just me. There might be someone else doing it right now. And then everyone's like, go fix it, right? So we try and keep telling those stories. So that's a good question. Yeah, so I'm constantly selling it, and against exactly your point here. Your IT folks, your dedicated IT folks, the guy that do the router switching servers, they just want to get it up and running. They want to do it better, faster, cheaper. And security sometimes isn't baked into that. So my job is to make sure we bake it in. And I would challenge, I don't know all the roles here, but if you guys are, I don't know if you want to be developers, if you're writing applications primarily, or if you're going to be on the engineering side where you're engineering chipsets. I mean, we're seeing a lot of malware get into firmware and that sort of stuff. So always be thinking of that. The people that are going to they're going to make the big bucks are the people that can do it better, faster, cheaper. Oh, by the way, it's secure, more secure. But wait, there's more, right? So from a security perspective, this is a perfect example of better, faster, cheaper. An executive wants an iPad because it's cool, it's fast. That thing boots up, boom, I'm in, I can do what I want to do. But this is a mindset change for a lot of people that have been in my role for years, right? Maybe some people have been in my role for too long. We try and say no to that. No, you can't have an iPad. Are you kidding me? I have these firewalls. I have this castle that I built around the entire firm, and now you want to walk around with this iPad and you want to have all this data on it? Are you kidding me? That thing could be hacked 5 ways in Sunday. The same thing with, you hear a lot of people talking about cloud, right? So you were talking about that earlier. So we get the same response from security folks. Hey, executive picks up the phone. I heard about this cloud thing. I don't need to have my own infrastructure people. They just do it all for me. Like, okay, you want to put stuff out there where you don't know who the staff is, you don't know the equipment, you don't know their processes, Now, there are ways to find it. I'm not saying you don't want to use it. But I'm going to tell you that, and I know a gentleman that's pretty well known in the hacking community, so to speak, and I think he's right. Because the next target, why am I going to go after firm ABC, where 15 firms or 1,500 firms have decided to put all their data out there? I'm going to go after that cloud provider. If I pop that cloud provider, I've got all the data from any industry you could imagine, right?
I'm trying to prevent myself from inundating you with questions, but maybe
No, please.
my first question, EC2, they use them, they have the best admins, they keep their OS up to date, they use firewalls, et cetera, et cetera. They're already doing all the best industry practices,
Right.
So why not go with them?
That's a really good question. So what happens is you have to measure that. So to your point, that staff might actually be better than the staff that I have at doing that. So it is a balancing act. And mind you, I'm not saying don't use cloud. I'm just saying that there are also personal storage clouds out there, like Dropbox, right? That presents levels of risk. And if your data is here in your data center with the people that you know, who sign your policies, who you pay, who work for you, and who have an interest in working for you. So say I got the best staff in the world, right? I got coolcloud.com, right? And I've got the best staff in the world. And there's 15,000 different companies with records in there. And then I have a breach or a denial of service tag. Are there enough people to jump on that, tell me what the problem is, fix the problem, tell me what of my records have been compromised? It's usually when you get into those out of the ordinary scenarios that suddenly denial of service. Or the worst case scenario that did happen, the federal government, right? They're investigating somebody was hosting child porn out here. Well, the federal government will walk in and they'll go over to that server and they'll go, I need this for discovery, right? I'm going to take this server. Well, but hold on a minute, my customers, I don't care. This is a crime, and I just commandeered this for a crime. And by the way, my records are on there. Or, for my case, even worse, my client's records are on there. So I'm representing these people, right? And they call me, hey, Joe, where's my stuff at? Well, that's a funny story. You know? So those are cases, and I'm not trying to scare people out of doing it, because I do know that there are some people who can do it better. But
you know, as a comment, I think one of the big dangers of EC2 is people use old images. You know, they'll use an EC2 image from a couple years ago that hasn't been updated.
Right. Also, like that stuff, you know, patching, right? And this is a bad example, but day zero comes out, right? And a cloud provider has to decide if they're going to do that patch, and when they're going to do that patch, and are they going to cause any outages, right? So they've got to go through the same testing. Well, maybe their process isn't as fast as mine, or maybe they're going to make a decision that I don't agree with. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of scenarios like that, and those guys can get fished, right? If they're the new target, you got some admin, you know, because they're growing and growing, right? EC2, they got a lot of people. They hire some guy, walks in, he sits down. You know, I'm here doing my job, right? Because I don't care about my job. I just want to get to 5 o'clock so I go to the bar, right? And they're doing their stuff. They get a fish about, hey, you just want an Xbox. Oh, sweet, click. You know, they bring that malware in. Now malware is running rampant through this environment. And I don't know about it. If they do an incident response, they don't tell me about it. You know, that's kind of the thing to think about.
Just commenting on about the security in it. I know Microsoft's policy, and I believe Amazon's is the same, is that personally identifiable information does not go into the public cloud. All of that stuff has to stay in the private data centers. So we're allowed to have, for example, my team's the family safety activity reports that are only identified by a number are allowed to be in the cloud, but anything with people's names and birth dates, and especially credit card information, is not allowed to be in there. And that's even with the Azure data stuff being certified for HIPAA and passing the ISO security standards and whatnot.
Exactly. So, to your point, I mean, like I said, it's not. It's a balancing act, because there's the argument. Well, maybe you got your IT staff who are very comfortable in their jobs. They get paid what they get paid. They leave at 5 o'clock, and maybe they don't really care as much. You know, they're not necessarily always getting paid to secure the environment, but they are. Sometimes you have to remind them.
Ready for another question? Inundation. You know, when I look at things like modern firewalls, deep packet analysis, I think, why are we even still getting hacked? Shouldn't there be like a checklist where, DMZ, firewall, deep packet analysis, limit them to their device, upgrade the OS? Shouldn't we be why are we at this place where we're still getting hacked?
So the question was, why are we still getting hacked? Because we have all these things, right? We have all these tools. And I'll go back to, that's a very good point. It's still the 101 stuff. Why do we still have web-facing applications that still are susceptible to cross-site scripting and SQL injection?
Yeah, so there aren't like Chinese geniuses getting through deep packet analysis, the firewall, all that. They're always going for the stuff people forget about, like the OS update, the iconic modem somebody forgot about, stuff like that.
There's two sides to it. So the question is do they, are there people that are getting around that, that high-level technology through firewalls? Yes, there are some of those, because they are, they're getting paid to do that. The bad guys are buying the same products that we are. So if I have a Checkpoint or a Cisco firewall, bad guys are going to buy those same things off of eBay. They bring them in and they hammer those things. They reverse engineer them. They
are able to actually hack those things?
Yeah. They're taking operating systems, right? And I won't name them, but they're taking all the operating systems. They're reverse engineering. So what we're recommending, if you have a global firm, somebody takes a laptop and they go over to a nation state, right? They'll rename nameless. If they go over there and they travel and they do work, the recommendations when you bring that thing back, wipe it, right? Because they're dropping stuff on there. Keylog catchers, unbeknownst to you. When it goes through customs, they want to look at the laptop. A lot of times they'll take it and they'll put stuff on it you don't know about. if you leave your laptop in a hotel room, if you're over, I'm just going to say it, if you're in China sometimes, you'll notice that people who travel there are always staying in the same room number. You know, if you think about it, they get up and walk out, they actually had a camera in that room. You know, someone put a camera in that room, and they watched people break into that room and start going through stuff. Installing stuff on laptops and whatever stuff.
I also, oh.
I'm going to say one more thing, and then one more answer to that question. So there are people reverse engineering doing that deep inspection. But so the people are lazy. The biggest problem is social engineering. They're going to send you a fish, a spear fish. They're going to go out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, they're going to find everything there is to know about you or the executive, and they're going to send you an email that maybe looks like a Facebook post or looks like, you know, an advertisement, you know, for the golf course that you golfed at last week, you know, and you're going to click on that. They're even picking up the phone and calling. So the latest, you've probably heard about it, but you know, people will be calling from those groups I told you about. There's 50 people sitting there getting paid to get me into that company. They're calling and saying, hey, this is Carl. I work for Microsoft. We noticed a lot of virus activity coming from your computer. We'd like to, you know, look at that if we could. And they'll say, go to Start, Menu, Programs, go to Control Panel, and they'll take you to the Event Viewer, right? So you go look at Event Viewer, and in Event Viewer, oh, do you see a lot of warnings? Which everyone always has warnings in Event Viewer, right? Scares that person. All right, well, here's what I need you to do. I need you to click on this link to get me access to your computer, and I'll fix it for you. And some people do that. Oh, okay. You're from IT support? Oh, I don't know who you guys are. All right, okay, click. It happens. So that it's really scary how bold these people are getting. And then when you don't fall for it, you're like, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Can I call you back? Click. You have no idea who it was. Right? Another question?
That was just pretty much what I was going to say, that you don't need to get through the Cisco firewall if you could just send them a phishing email and you're in from the inside.
The biggest thing that a lot of firms need to implement to prevent, and all you're doing with defense and depth strategies is making it harder. Firewalls, application whitelisting is like one of the newer things. There's a lot of malware appliances that will detect command and control traffic coming from your network. So those are the types of things that we need, but it's really just awareness training and that sort of thing. You're making people aware. But I was going to say, the biggest thing to help stop the bad guys on your firewall is not, you know, this is the old school 1990s. Stop people from coming in. The biggest bang for your buck with a firewall is stop stuff from going out. Most companies don't do outbound or what's called egress filtering. So if I'm able to make someone click on a link and they're trying to go out on some port that I don't allow, that's the stuff that needs to be inspected. Because the command and control stuff that the malware is doing, that's sending stuff over to some other country. If you have rules that say don't allow communication to this country, if I don't work in that country, right? So you really, it's not easy, but you take the time. That's going to slow things down and prevent it. And then you're monitoring for weird stuff. So you're blocking with your firewall, you're monitoring for weird stuff, and you're like, hey, why are we sending 500 gig over to this? That's weird. What's going on with that IP address, you know?
I read somewhere that both China and Russia don't allow you to bring encrypted devices into their country. Is that true?
That's partially true. People do it. If you have a TPM chip, that's what they're really not happy about. You're not supposed to bring a TPM chip into China, is what I understand.
You know, another thing I read is that some companies, they're actually requiring people to throw stuff away when they come back from China. Are we at a point now where you can't even buy a Lenovo laptop, or, you know, they're cracking chips and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, so it goes back to the recommendation, if you come back from China or from those countries, you're supposed to wipe your laptop. But to your point, does it go to the hardware level? Yeah, potentially. It's risk-based. You know, do I sell Avon? Right? If I sell Avon, I probably don't need to do that. If I work for the, you know, cyber intelligence for the government, yeah, give me a new laptop. Or I'm with that thing all the way. Or I don't even bring it, right? So it's risk-based. So you got to make those decisions based on, if this stuff got exposed, which it probably did, why do I care? You know. So yeah, it's a game. Real quick, I'm sorry I'm rambling, guys. Back to the BYOD thing. So we have a lot of the same problems on iPhones, not so much on iPhones, but on like Androids, right? So Androids, if you were to, the metrics against the malware that's installed on an iOS device, an iPad, an iPhone, versus an Android. Android's winning, by the way, because they don't really have the strong app store like iPhone does, right? Or like Apple does. So there's like 3,500, per day or whatever malware coming out. There's just a lot more malware on Androids, right? So if an Android gets rooted, or if an iPhone gets jailbroken, you really shouldn't let those on a company network, right? First of all, it voids the warranty, right? If you jailbreak something. But there's a lot of bad stuff out there. So we're going back to the 90s again. The problem in the 90s was software development, right? The problem, not just the only problem, but the security problem in the 90s was just people not checking their code for all these problems. Push it out there, get it out there faster, cheaper, better. Let's go, 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 right? And then we're paying the price for that even today. We have the same problem in this world. So there's an application out that you can download from the App Store. I think it's still out there. And they do a pretty good job of, if they find something, they pull it. So I give them a lot of credit for that. But there's an application you can download from the App Store that actually needs credentials to get into your other apps, like Google Cloud, this, that, and the other, right? And that app actually is storing usernames and passwords for your other apps in clear text, right? So it's on some text file on your phone, right? So malware knows that. They learn it before anybody else does, bad guys, and they grab that file and then they have access to all your other stuff. Now, if you're a person, and it's just your family pictures, all right, maybe you don't care so much. But if you're a large firm, and you have sensitive data that can't get out until tomorrow, like there's, and data usually has a timeline on it, right? Really important. Apple's going to buy Microsoft, right? No, they're not. But Apple's going to buy Microsoft, and that is critical data that's on, somewhere in my organization. If that gets out today, holy Moses, right? That's the problem. But now it's 10 years ago, and Apple's bought Microsoft, and now they control the world, which maybe they do. They bought Microsoft, right? And now that that's already happened, nobody cares anymore. So I get that data, I don't care. So there's a timeline to it. But back to this again, it goes back to good coding, right? People, and I mean, I don't even know how many apps are on the App Store, but there are thousands and thousands of cool stuff coming out. Oh, that's cool, I want that, boom. But we're doing this, we have the same problem going on that we had in the 90s. That security, it's more of a focus. Don't get me wrong, we've come a long way. But we're still seeing bad apps after bad apps, right? So that's a problem for security. And the cool factor is winning, because people want this. Now, I'm sorry, this means bring your own device. I hope maybe I should have said that. Bring your own device in a firm means that your executives and your CFOs and all those people, the important people in the company, can go buy their own iPhone and say, hey, I want to get corporate email on here, right? I want to do my job with this thing because I don't want to carry around this thing anymore, this cheap, bulky laptop. So as security people, we have to come up with solutions to allow them to do this with their own device that we don't own and secure it appropriately. Now, there's a lot of technologies that do that, and we can talk about it. So, let's get on. So where do we go from here, right? There are a lot of roles that are needed in government, in corporations to do what I do. And I wasn't always the security manager. I was in a locker room hacking away at stuff for a while too. There's a corporate need. So what I will tell you is that right now, and I wish I remember the statistics. I don't know if it's just Ohio or if it's the United States, I apologize. 0% unemployment rate in information security today. 900% increase in jobs and job availability in the information security space, right, today. 900% since I think 2004. And it's growing like crazy because everyone's freaking out. There's all this bad stuff going on. So here are the different roles that you can do. So hopefully, I don't know if you guys are interested in this field, but let me just explain it to you. So if you're doing application development, you can continue to do that. You can write applications, it's cool stuff. You can also be dedicated to security in an application. You can be the guy that's running code analysis tools, right? You can do, right now a lot of firms are doing what's called manual code reviews. It just sounds painful, and it's not effective. There are a lot of new tools that come out there that automate it. And to your point, right, I'm not going to be able to slow people down. You know, Joe, I need this cool web app that does this cool thing for my business, right? Well, wait a minute, we need to think about security. My CEO is like, Joe, you're slowing me down, dude. Come on, you know? Well, if we get some automated code tools, which they're out there, and I won't say names, you know, you can be a part of that. You analyze the code, you find the SQL injection, you find the cross-site scripting, which are still the problems. You fix them and you move on. You do it like that. You enter it into the process before it goes into production. So you can do that. There's the network side. I don't know if you're interested in there's a lot of going on in the network space. Voice over IP, right? People are when they're pick up the phone. I'm sure it's here at Case too, right? People are answering the phone and their conversations traveling right across the IP network. Great, right? It's fast. It's cool. It's got all these funny devices or features. The problem with it is anybody can tap into that and take that conversation off the wire. So again, it's the cool factor winning, right? Man, that's cool. So if you want to be in that space, in the network world, you can help secure the networks. A lot of people are still using Telnet. They should be using Secure Shell, right? Because all I got to do is, if I want to breach company ABC and they've got 37 locations, I'm not going to go into the corporate headquarters. I'm going to go over here where the mailroom is. And by the way, I'm going to plug in with Ethernet. I'm just going to sit there for about an hour. I'm just going to sniff the network. I'm going to get passwords. I'm going to get all kinds of stuff, right? So you could be in the network space. Operating system, you can build hardened operating system images, you know, and then you can go hack them yourself to make sure that they're hardened. Compliance and process, if you're more of a process person, which I am, but some of this stuff's the boring stuff in my mind, but compliance is huge. Payment card industry, there's a lot of regulations, to your point, that are coming out telling people, you know what, if you're going to have my data, my credit card numbers, you got to do these things. Well, that's what the payment card industry is. So compliance is you'd walk into a firm, you could be a consultant too, right? And you could do a lot of this stuff as a consultant. You can walk into a firm and say, Mr. CEO, you guys aren't doing these things. You got to do these things if you want to be compliant with them. Then you move up the chain, right? You could be a manager, sit in meetings, drink coffee like I do sometimes. You could be this CISO, right? Chief Information Security Officer. CISOs, right? Chief Security Officers, the cool thing about them now is it's like they're bringing up the data security, which used to be the geeks in the room over there. I don't want to talk to those people, right? And then there's all the physical security guys. I used to be a Marine, not me, but you know, someone's like, who used to be a Marine, and I'm gonna, you know, I've got a gun and a badge, right? Well, the CISOs now, you're starting to see all that roll up because there's this blend between physical, you know, and logical security. So you're seeing a lot of threats coming out, and the thing that scares me the most is the blended threat that's going to happen. You know, the next 9/11, right? So they're already practicing it, right? I'm going to take out the power grid. They did it, I think, somewhere in Texas. They took out a water supply place in Texas. Right? So I'm going to take out your water supply. I'm going to take down your power grid. And while you're dealing with that, I'm going to come back door and take down your financial industry. You know? Those are the things that worry me the most. But that stuff's rolling up to one guy because those things are together. You know, they didn't used to be. You know, the card access where people can, you know, swipe a card and it lets me in the door. Those are running across the same network that your Facebook is. What? Right? It scares me. So if I bring that network down, the card access thing stops working, and I just locked every door in the entire building because it fails shut, right? It fails closed. So, you know, that's why you're seeing this person now being in charge of the whole thing. You need one person to say, not on my watch. Red team, blue team, this is good cop, bad cop. So you could, if you are interested in being the hacker for the right reasons, right? I'm going to put on a white hat. I'm going to be ethical, right? I'm going to be the guy that's going to tell you where your holes are at. This is where a lot of people in my role are failing. You got to test it, right? Don't put all these tools and processes in place and say, oh, I'm good. You need to be on the red team side and people need to go out and test it. The blue team is the hard part, defend against the red team. So I'll tell you about an organization you guys probably already know about, where students are doing this. They're doing it at universities. You can go to a competition. I don't know if you've heard of that. But you can be part of the competition where you could be on one or both of those teams. So something to think about. skills needed, you guys probably been preached to about this by your parents or professors or whatever, but it's true. You need technical skills, right? You know, those are the things you're getting now. You also need the soft skills, right? Some of the stuff we don't like, I don't like doing documentation, but I do it a lot. Written, speaking, presentation, and listening skills. But the most important thing when you get out into your job, when you get out in the world, is the creativity to pull those things together, right? Using tools like, so let me talk about Citrix for a minute. So here's a scenario, right? Joe, there's this person in your firm that needs to be able to get to this bad site, and we call it badstuff.com. He needs to get to that site for legitimate reasons. You know, there's a firm case going on, and he needs to investigate that site or whatever. But if he goes to that site, I know it's going to drop 50 gig of malware onto his machine and just start doing all kinds of bad stuff. But Joe, he needs to get there. Well, I can't let you do that on my network, but he needs to get there. And he bills $450 an hour. All right, you win. So we use a tool like Citrix, right? And we create, you know, somewhat creativity, right? We create a sandbox browser. So he goes to that environment, clicks on a link, goes there, does what he needs to do. It starts doing all this bad stuff. He's doing his research, screenshots, whatever. Boom, he closes it, everything's gone. It's the virtual concept. You guys are aware of, probably bringing more stuff. So it's a little bit of creativity using the tools that you have. Right? You don't have to buy a new tool every time. You can just be creative with it. One of the other things too, there's a guy that did a study. I was at a security summit just this last week, yesterday and the day before. His name's Gary Bainey. I don't know if you know him. He was like a prof over at Cleveland State. He's done some stuff here. He just did a study on what universities are teaching and what corporations are looking for in the security world. And some of the stats he came back with is a lot of the universities are heading in the right direction. So he included, and I wish I knew the guy's name, but there was a professor at Case that he talked to. There was a professor at Cleveland State, Akron U, Tri-C, and a couple other places he talked to. And there were 10 areas of information security that were looking good, as in the universities are starting to teach the right things or are teaching the right things. There are 4 areas of really who cares. In other words, there was a low need for it in the world, and there was low instructional areas, you know, in the university. There were 5 that were poor, so Gary gave it a C-. So one of the things that the ISC CWRU group is going to be doing, and you guys could join that group. I know Eddie comes to our meetings every once in a while. Is we're going to help that, right? So we're going to try and work with professors and make sure that what they're teaching is really what's needed, what's being done out there, you know, to help, hopefully help you guys. And their input would be critical for them. Okay, I'm preaching about that. Day in the life, so let me just go over this real quick. A day in the life, and I'll tell you some incidents that I've dealt with. So here's what it is for me. Now keep in mind I'm a manager, I drink coffee, but I still deal with a lot of this stuff. So first thing in the morning, like I tell you, when I get to work and I'm thinking about all those threat vectors, right? I'm thinking about the cyber hacktivists. While I was sleeping at 2 a.m. last night, what was going on my network? Well, the 8 a.m. posture check, what that means is I'm looking at logs and dashboards to see, well, there was 500,000 hits on my firewall in Europe last night, right? And there's only normally 200,000 hits. So it's that kind of stuff. Now I got to go dig deep. What the hell's going on in Europe, right? So I got to find that out. So that we go through that. 10 a.m. audit. I have to meet with an auditor. Right? We're going to talk about, are you compliant? Are you doing these things that you say you're doing? But that's good. Someone's checking my work, right? So they tell my boss, Joe's doing good, or man, Joe sucks, right? 10:30 a.m. I take a call. I got a call from one of my engineers. And I could have one of my engineers come out and talk with you guys if you want to. We can go really deep. You know, so what are some of the incidents? Let me give you some examples. Joe, I just got a call from our chief financial officer and his laptop was stolen. Right? Oh, crap. Okay. Next question. Do we know what was on that laptop? Oh, yeah, he's got all the projections and all the annual statements and all the blah, 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 you know, all the stuff you don't want to get out, right? Oh, crap. You know, did we encrypt that laptop? Yeah, we've encrypted the laptops. Good call. We made that investment. We did the right thing. All right. Is there a power on authentication? You know, that's the difference in laptop encryption between checkbox security and real security. If the answer was no, it's just going to roll right into a Windows login screen. Uh-oh. We didn't stop the bad guys. We did a little bit better. The encryption's there. But if I did power on authentication, did we make that decision? When we rolled that out, did we make that decision? Yeah, we made that decision. Good. So the bad guy now needs to try. He gets 5 attempts and he's out, right? Well, what's our password policy? Oh, we don't really have one. So does that mean the password could be 1234? Yeah. Oh, crap. Oh, wait, we're good. We have a 10-character password policy. Oh, okay, it's complex. All right, good. So what's the probability I'm going to get that password in 5 tries or out? Pretty low. Possible? Yes. I don't have to worry about so much, right? So that's why those decisions that we make, all that policy stuff is important. But anyways, let's say the incident was, here's an interesting scenario. Obviously, again, this didn't happen at Jones Day, but when I was a consultant, this happened. So when you talk about encryption, should I encrypt a server's hard drive? What's the value in that? You know, most of the servers are in the data center, locked up behind all these security controls. You know, there's a guy with a badge and a gun sitting in front of it, so I think we're all right. I'm not going to worry about it. That's expense I don't need to worry about. Situation that happened. Get a call. 8 o'clock in the morning. Someone comes in and says, Joe, this server's down, and it's a remote office, right? It's a remote office for this firm, for this company. It wasn't a law firm. Joe, the server's down. What? Yeah, they check it, and there's this monitoring tool that shows it's red. Server ABC is red, it's down. All right, so they send an admin, you know, and the server admin's trying to get to it remotely, right? And there's this thing called the RIB card that you can come in through a different network. You can do it remotely. That's not working either. Oh, that's not good. And the server's still up and running, mind you. There's still power to it. The person comes in, and so they call someone in the local office, and he walks up to the server and says, you know, can you tell me what you see? Well, I see this, I see that. The bottom line of the story is someone came in, ripped the hard drives out of the server, and walked out. Now, it was a remote office, right? So it wasn't the big winner. But suddenly, the encryption of that data would have been really important, right? And the company at that time had not done that. Now, it wasn't very common to do that back at this time, right? But the moral of the story is your day's never going to be the same, right? You always have a different day when you're in security. You don't know what call you're going to get. You know, so that they had to disclose. They found out also that HR was storing stuff on that server that they weren't supposed to be doing that, but it was convenient and easy for them, right? So there were all kinds of records out there, so that we had to get legal involved. We spent months and months disclosing all this stuff. It was a mess. But you know, just someone came into that place. They knew where the key was, I think, for the closet. They went in the closet. They ripped the drives out of the server. So what happened about a month after that? Big project to encrypt all server hard drives, right? So anyway, you take a call, right? So those are the kind of calls you get. The other call you can get from an incident is there's malware. Joe, we've detected malware. It's on your network. It's doing command and control traffic back to Russia or China or whatever. And we discovered it, but it's been going for 4 hours, right? So what do I have to do now? Well, first of all, I got to stop that thing. And I got to figure out what it's been doing, who it's been talking to, and all stuff. You know, so when you get that call, some days it's exciting, some days it's like, oh man, right? So those are the kind of things we're talking about. So you move on for your day. I had lunch scheduled with HR. Why? Well, a lot of the stuff we do deal with humans, right? So I need to have a good relationship with human resources. So I'm going to have lunch with them. We're going to talk about some of the stuff I'm doing, so they're aware. You know, and hey, do you realize you got a lot of people going to abc.com during the day? Did you know that? What? They might not be aware. I thought they're working. No, they're not really working. They're doing stuff. Then at 1 o'clock, I got a bolt from lunch, and I got to do a presentation to the board because I got to sell stuff. We need application whitelisting. We need to do egress filtering on our firewall, which is going to require all this time and money, right? So I do that. Emergency meeting. My engineer calls me. Joe, I got bad news. We found out what the incident was, and somebody ripped off the hard drives out of the server. 3 o'clock meeting, you know. Mind you, this stuff goes into the night, right? I've got a phone, it rings all the time. Then 4 o'clock, weekly report to the CEO. I got to tell him about this and hope I don't get fired. Right? So some of this stuff, and mind you, this is not really I'm giving an example of a day. A lot of this stuff is through the years. And then 5 o'clock, the final incident, report, comes out. Now, that's my role. There's the other roles I talked about, the engineers. These are the people that are reverse engineering the malware, right? So if you're interested in that, cool. I want a copy of the malware that's on that computer. I'm going to put it in my sandbox. I'm going to pull out Backtrack 5, and I'm going to go town on this thing and figure out what it's doing, right? That's cool stuff if you're into that, which I used to be. So just to give you an example. How are we doing time? I think we just about done. Okay, 10 minutes. So this is really the end, and I hope I didn't bore you guys too much. If there are technical questions you want to talk about, we can talk about those. I didn't have a chance to talk to Eddie about what it is you wanted to really dig deep into. I hope this was helpful. One of the things I would recommend, what you're doing today, keep doing it. First thing, get involved. You're in this group, you're here on Saturday, good for you. Have fun, be in school, have a good time. I have 2 stepsons, they're both in college. I tell them the same thing. Go have fun. Work, and then have fun. You're only young ones. But do these things. Get involved. Right? So if you're on Twitter, there's a guy named Dave Kennedy, and he gave me permission to tell you about this. He's kind of a local rock star in the Cleveland area. This guy wrote a tool called the Social Engineering Toolkit. Has anybody heard of that? Okay. It's out there. And it's the funniest and the coolest thing at the same time. And this guy, I don't know how he ever sleeps. He's got a family, and he's crazy busy. But he wrote the Social Engineering Toolkit. You can go out, you can download it, and you can create a fish. You can send it to somebody, and you can pick what exploit you're going to use. And when they click on it, suddenly you have access to that box. It's downloadable, it's out there. Please don't. Right? You'll get in trouble with the law if you do that, and you don't have permission, right? But do it in the lab, test it out, get better at it. We need more people that know how to do that, right? His name's Dave Kennedy, and that's his handle, Dave Relic, that's a 1, R-E-L-1-K. This is the thing I was telling you about, National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. Just go observe one of these, But you can follow them on Twitter, they tell you what universities they're at. I don't know that there's been one in Cleveland yet, but I think there will be. Metasploit is another hacking tool if you want to be on the red team, right? If you want to be on the blue team, just follow these vendors. ACM CWRU is the group that I was telling you about. Bruce Schneer is another good guy, because he does analysis like even on the TSA when you go to the airport. He has a lot of good stories, very funny, interesting stories. He's a good speaker. Wrote a book, a couple books. So these are the ones to follow. Also get involved. If you're interested in this field in general, the CISSP certification that comes from ACM CWRU covers a lot. And it's about 1 inch deep, but 300 miles wide. So you learn about closed circuit TVs, but you also learn about web application security, wireless, all that stuff. So go after that. There's other certs that I can tell you about as well. Join some InfoSec groups. This is the chapter, the Cleveland chapter, isc2.cleveland.org. We meet once a month. We have all different types of speakers. Eddie Massey's been there a few times. He can tell you about it. And the whole point of it is to collaborate with people. And the cool thing about it, it's all the leaders for the companies in Cleveland. People are from KeyBank. People are from Lincoln Electric. I mean, any company you could think of. There's all the security people. So if you're interested, that's where you meet people. Scholarships, isc2cares.org. You can get scholarships and stuff there. So I think that's really it. I'd also like to say that I don't know about CASE if they have a good program. I apologize. I should probably know this, but if you can do a co-op or an intern, and I think you could attest to that. I know I did one. That's key. No matter what you're passionate about, what you want to do when you leave CASE, right, with a job, if you can find your way into an intern or a co-op, I would highly, if you haven't done it already, I would suggest doing it. It really does make a difference. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Question?
let me tell you about my security fantasy. You can tell me how fantasy oriented this is.
Okay.
User, instead of a laptop, has like a graphical terminal with no hard drive. All it can do is VPN, and then it shows a VNC connection. All their stuff is on your own cloud. And they log into the device using their phone, right? What do you think of that?
There's a lot of firms that are doing that. So they're using, so what you're doing, what's funny is you're going back in the 70s, everyone had mainframes, and everything was centralized, right? But everyone had dumb terminals, what you're talking about, right? They used dumb terminals, and they had nothing in them, and all they did is they come back, to this mainframe, and they do all their stuff. Now, in the 80s and 90s, people started decentralizing. More and more servers, less and less mainframe, a lot more PCs, a lot more stuff you could do with this. But, the only problem with that potentially is, remote workers. The problem we run into with executives and people, because that can work for the 80-20 rule, 80% of the people, that would be fine. There's the 20% of the people, and unfortunately, the 20% of the people that have the data that people want, CFOs, CEOs, they travel a lot.
Why not just force them to use it?
You can, but remember, you got to walk up to your CEO. So that'd be me walking up to the president of my company and saying, you know what, you're not going to do this, you're going to do that. It doesn't usually work, but they want to be able to work in plane mode. These guys work 15 hours a day or 16 hours a day. And when they're on a plane for 2 hours, I need to work on that spreadsheet. I need it here. And there's new plane mode now. I think the planes are starting to offer Wi-Fi, so that's helping that problem. And if, God forbid, my VPN goes down, because one of my IT guys decided he wanted to do a patch and he forgot to forgot to test it, and now the VPN's been down for 2 hours. What you have now is an entire firm, pissed off at you.
they're gonna be pissed all the time.
Yeah, well, that's really true. No, but let me answer your question. Absolutely, that's absolutely one of the solutions that some people are doing. Yeah, and it's a risk based. If I sell, not to cut on Avon, but if I sell Avon, if I'm taking payments, that's different. But I'm just selling Avon. But if I work for the, if I work for the U.S. government and I work for NASA and I've got some plans, then your plan is what I would want.
Do you think we can trust those anonymizing VPN companies that offer that service?
Trust the anonymizing VPN. So
yeah, there's a bunch of companies, like one of them is Crypto Hippie. They say buyer service will sell you the VPN and will also anonymize your traffic.
Do you mean anonymize or do you mean clean? Clean your traffic.
I'm thinking I mean anonymous. Like in other words, when you go to a site, they don't know where your traffic is coming from. They only see it coming out of the end of this VPN company. Like in other words, if they wanted to try to do information leakage or like packet analysis on your VPN.
Yeah, can you trust them? I mean, that's the hard part of everything. It's like a cloud provider. You really they've got to do ISO certifications and prove that they really are who they say they are.
Yeah, I think that's one. I mean, how do we even know we can trust companies like Level 3? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but.
But it's funny because it's man versus machine. It's always been that. So you've got technology, right, and you've got people. You can have the best technology in the world, but you got one person that works at Level 3, and they do something stupid, or they're not trustworthy, or Level 3 doesn't do background checks, and we just hired the next Al Qaeda guy or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's the process and the people problem, and you're never going to get away from it.
And it seems like it's getting worse because they're using their own devices, they're using their own software. So there's like this big need for all these different levels to pass some kind of certification to show they're trustworthy.
Yeah, there's an ISO 27001 certification. That's probably one of the newer ones, I should say, that firms are starting to pass. Like there's thousands of those coming out. They do help.
One thing I don't understand why people don't use more is formal methods in programming. They use this on chips for the math code processors to guarantee that they're going to do the math correctly. They use it on missiles to guarantee it won't land in the wrong place.
Right.
Why don't they use that for everything, especially for networking software? Maybe it's too expensive.
Yeah, it's better, faster, cheaper. A lot of them are doing that to some extent. I'm not sure which regulation or format you're talking about.
It's a technique where you program in such a way that you can use a math proof to show that your program is going to fit certain characteristics.
Okay. Right. In corporate America, there's a lot going on. There's the secure software development lifecycle. If you guys are you guys developers? Are you computer science coders? No?
Computer science.
Computer science mostly in here, right? Okay. So OWASP, you familiar with that? So if you go to owasp.org, it stands for the Open Web Application Security something or other, I forget what it all stands for. But there are what's called the OWASP Top 10. So if you're a developer, there's a lot of things in there that show you, tell you, give you examples of how to write secure code. So that's one to check out if you're a developer.
What's that called again?
OWASP, OWASP.org. And they actually have a group, I think they have a group in Cleveland that meets monthly or something like that.
To your question, I would say that there's not everything can be done that way. Like if I'm doing a string manipulation, I create to null terminate that, and somebody writes something off the end of that. I can't solve that with a math proof. I can't prove that everything. Where I can prove my algorithm is great, but I can't prove that I haven't made a mistake in coding it that could lead to a buffer overflow, execution of something off the stack.
Right.
It's also really difficult to formally verify dynamic languages and things like that, which a lot of web companies nowadays basically entirely use dynamic languages.
And it's the trust but verify. And I think also you could write the perfect application, and if you follow the same methodology, you'll be good. But what usually happens a lot of times is everyone spend a lot of money and time when it's a new project. It's cool and it's new, and then it goes down the pipe and somebody wants to make a change or fix something, and then they get lazy. Now it's not the cool project anymore because they're on to the next project. But Joe, I need you to go back to this. I need this app to do whiz-bang. Oh, okay. We get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Submit, go, back.
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Let's say to touch on two of the things that you mentioned, most recently the OWASP, but in our organization we use manual code reviews, which you mentioned before, and they're painful and there's no way to cover everything that you could possibly cover. We use those as a training tool. We cover 0.1% or less of all the code we write. But the ones that we do, it's a great cross-training tool, not only to see what other people are working on, but to see how they solve these sorts of problems, how they write code that checks for SQL injection and checks for cross-site scripting and those sorts of problems.
And that's actually a good point. I'm glad you said that because that's the beauty of a manual code review, because you're taking dedicated time with the developers and you're talking about it and learning. If they learn how to do it, the next time hopefully they don't do it. Whereas if you're doing the automated scanning, you just come back with a big report, this is bad, go fix this. Maybe they're not learning as well. But I think there's value a little bit in both, obviously.
Yeah, thanks. That's cool. It seems to me we're in this weird situation where the industry everyone is just trying to get stuff done like they always have been. But we're very close to a tipping point where we can't do that anymore. We're going to have we're going to have an army of criminals just like destroying us.
You're just as paranoid as I am. Yeah, it's the buy-in. That's where the excelling it comes in. There's the CEOs and CFOs that they're thinking about business. That's great. We want them thinking about business. But every once in a while, I got to sit down and say, did you guys know that we really need to, and they're buying into it now. They really are.
Whenever we talk to management, we always tell them the old rule of the triangle is fast, cheap, and right. Pick two.
Right.
And it's always that balance.
Right. Right. And I think, you read the Wall Street Journal now and you hear, company A breached tomorrow, company B breached the next day. And I think it's in the right hands now. I think the people are going, I need to know more about this. I need to make sure that we're doing the right things. Anything else? We should have lunch, probably.
Sure.
One other question?
Yeah.
Do a little more, and then people want a great lunch.
Why are we using more AI techniques to analyze outgoing traffic and info of all types? Because it seems like a good thing to be doing.
Artificial intelligence to analyze traffic, is that what you said?
Yeah, traffic and even human behavior. Like use big data. Who picked up the phone at what time? What did they say? What did they type on the keyboard? What traffic went out?
That's already going on now, but unfortunately, it's more marketing people that are doing that. And they want to know about human behavior, because how do I sell, right? Which is why all the ads are popping up when you log into Facebook or whatever. You know, hey, I know you went to the Avon a lot, so now all of a sudden your Avon ads are popping up in Google, right? So to your point, it is happening. It's starting to happen more with people who have the time to do it. So like, we don't, like where I'm at, we don't have the staff or time to do that level, but I think it's happening at the government, and there's a lot more government contractors that are doing that stuff.
So say you got hacked or whatever, and you're some data was exfiltrated or whatever. How do you track what is actually what's been leaked and stuff? Like, do you have any tools or what?
Yeah, so we have where I'm at now. And to your point, not a lot of people are good at that. We have what's called a document management system, and it all goes back to logging, right? You're trying to the data lifecycle. You're trying to monitor, what's going on. So there are a lot of SIM tools out there right now. So SIM stands for Security Incident and Event Management. You're sending logs from all these servers that go back to this main dashboard. And so it would tell me that Joe Daw logged in at 8:30 in the morning, right? That sends an event back to this one place. Then it would tell me that Joe then opened his email, because the email server has a record of me opening my email at 8:32, right? Joe accessed file server, or whatever, payroll, or whatever, at 9 a.m., right? It tells me that, right? Incident happened at 9:32 from Joe's PC. I know that because I've got this appliance that tells me there's malware on it, right? It's doing command and control traffic at 9:32. Boom, I know that happened. And now I've got a log file to tell me what all was happening on that server. Now here's where people fall down. They don't log it, right? Or they don't have it correlate. So now I've got all these logs. If I don't correlate it to one back-end SIM tool that basically pulls that all together and tells me the story, a lot of people, if they don't have the right logging on, then they won't know. And then they have to ask the person, what did you have on your machine?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if a server gets compromised and it's, pulling data from, they've got some really, targeted malware that's like pulling data from, other servers on, your payroll server, or maybe you're stealing intellectual property or whatever, and
right.
sending it off. It's kind of hard to.
It is, and I'm not going to lie, that's a difficult thing to find out. So that's why when there's breaches that come out and people disclose the breach, sometimes they'll just say, we know this happened, we know it was in this area, but we don't know exactly what was taken, and so we're disclosing to everyone. So a lot of disclosure laws will let you can either, if you know it was these 50 records, you can just tell those 50 people that their records were compromised. If you don't know, you're in a situation where you can now put it on your website, or you can tell the media, yeah, we were hacked. What was taken, we're still investigating. You bring in the forensic experts to do that. But there are tools that will be you can be as concise as you want to be. Even going out the network, right? There's what's called data loss prevention tools that will tell you that not only to the file name, but what content was in the file. So it's called data loss prevention as well.
Are the bad guys using big data on information leakage from the red team side yet? From every source?
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes. Yeah. They're really good. And right now they're in the lead. I'll tell you that. And there's a lot of boardroom meetings going on. Hey, bad guys are winning. One for them.
That's my next question. You may remember about a year ago, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce was hacked, and their thermostat was showing Chinese characters. The FBI guy said security doesn't exist now. Like he said it seriously too. Like, no, nothing can be secure ever again on the internet. Do you think he was? What do you think of that?
Using words like always and never, I don't like to use those words in either case. But he's accurate. It's a battle. That's why you've got all these controls, defense, and depth that you're trying to do. What firms can honestly do now is they buy themselves time. You put all this stuff in, and you have all this alerting, and you buy yourself time. So when something bad is happening, you can be alerted to it immediately, jump on it, stop it right there. That's how you win. That's your best stake in the game. It's a cat and mouse game. The vendors are coming up with new tools. The bad guys are buying the same tools. They're getting around it. We buy more tools. So you build process around it. If you think creatively, with your firewalls and all the, if you think about all the tools that are out there today and what you can do with them, you don't necessarily need to go buy a bunch of new stuff. You know, it's the 101 stuff you need to do. And like to your point, the more I tighten it down, the harder it's going to be. And that's all you're trying to do, make it harder. So. Anyways, let me stop now. You guys have to eat lunch. It's a little bit after 12. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, you know, I'd love to answer them.
Lunch is ready downstairs.